Welcome to Marketing with Confidence. I'm your host, Marianne Amies. We're going to be talking all things digital and online marketing for business owners and marketing professionals. If you've been feeling overwhelmed by your digital marketing, be sure to listen along and you'll hear tips, interviews and more that will give you the confidence to create marketing you love. Welcome back to another episode of Marketing with Confidence. I'm so excited today to be joined by Rowena Preddy, and we're going to be talking about creating a brand that grows with you. Hi, Rowena.
Hi.
How are you going?
I'm enjoying the sunshine. I know that many of you, if you're still listening, you're possibly in the depths of winter, but sunny Cairns is putting it on today.
I'm very jealous as I sit here in a woolen jumper. Look, to kick off, I'd love you to tell everyone about you, and especially how you became passionate about small businesses elevating through their branding.
So I am a branding guru, as it says on my business card. But what this means is, I think when I first jumped into working in small business and starting up my own business, it wasn't because I was good at business. It was of necessity. I was made redundant and I'd come out of a very toxic environment and decided there is no way I can put myself back in that situation. And I did what a lot of people do when you go, holy crap, I have so much stuff to learn. All of a sudden, after years of potentially not actually being in that learning environment, I went and signed up to a coaching program, a group coaching program that really started at the ground. And I saw so many people struggling with their branding. And I think it's because there's just so many things when you're in small business. There's so many balls in the air, and everyone really wants to love branding, but they really can often be scared of it. There's a lot of things that are going on in people's heads, and it just kind of gets put back to the back seat. And I've just seen, as I work with small business and micro businesses, how much of an impact it can have. And I feel like there's this huge education piece around branding where there needs to be the knowledge of, okay, so why do I need more than just a logo? It's not just saying to people, you need a brand, and they're like, huh? It's like, well, what actually is branding? And it's not just me. There's many facets to it, and it's an education piece. And actually getting people excited about it, I love that. My favorite thing is when people are freaking amped to go out and put themselves out into the world with the brand. The power of that cannot be understated.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. I mean, yeah, look, I think it is such a common experience to come from corporate or, working in different sort of structured environments and have those bad experiences, or need, the perception of more flexibility. I think we all know in reality we end up working so much more for ourselves. But, we can start later if we want. We just work to midnight. But, it's such a lived experience, I think, to really want to redefine your own rules and really build something that suits you and is true to, your passions and what you want.
Oh, and I think one of my favorite realizations from working in business, like my top realization is personal growth equals business growth. And boy, have I been on a personal growth journey.
Yeah, such a good point as well. I think I've talked about that before, like having a business grows you in ways you never would have grown as an employee. Sometimes I am on these mountains of growth, and I'll say to my coach, what I'm going through is really hard and it's really horrible, but I know when I come on the other side, I'm going to grow so much as a person. Do I really want this growth? Do I need it? Can I just be stuck? But yeah, you go through some huge challenges and yeah, you really do. Yeah, I don't. I feel like saying I'm a better person sounds a little bit egotistical, but I think I'm a more considered person than I was in my corporate days.
Preach. Honestly, it's so true. I say to people frequently, I do not recognize the person I was 6 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
That person, I needed that person as a benchmark. And that person's experiences have shaped who I am today. But the growth that I've seen there's definitely an upward sweep.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, to get to know you a little bit better, I've got just a couple of quick questions for you on some of my favorite topics. Coffee or wine?
Crap. Coffee in the AM, wine in the PM, except on Christmas Day when all bets are off.
That is definitely that's always what I end up saying to people. I'm like, I feel it's an AM to PM debate. I like the Christmas Day caveat though. Reading for pleasure or personal development?
Oh, I have a collection of personal developments, and don't get me wrong, there is some that have fundamentally changed again who I am as a person. Off the top of my head, my top ones are definitely Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert and Untamed by Glennon Doyle.
Yes.
Those two have really picked me up and shook me a bit.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be my natural reach. I have a confession to make. My name is Rowena, and I read very smart books.
They're gaining so much in popularity as
It was my guilty pleasure when I was a kid. I've been a fantasy girl before Harry Potter, before all those things, before there was smut in the books.
Yes.
It's like 10-year-old me is getting to read her grown-up version of her books, and my to-be-read pile just grows ever. And all I dream of is a quiet house, a hot cup of tea, and a comfy blanket to cuddle up under and just not be bothered.
That's awesome. Yeah, I am in I get served a lot of book talk on TikTok and definitely see a lot of recommendations. I haven't read any yet. I do read quite a lot for pleasure. I have to diversify. I'm in a book club, so maybe I'll put it forward for book club and make everyone have a go together.
Oh, honey, I've got a Booktopia list of 60 books plus the 10 sitting on my shelf to be read. Just, you hit me up, we'll sort this out.
Thank you. And then what about beach or bush?
This is a tough one. I'm going to have to say bush, but I have to caveat that by saying it has to be a creek or something like that. Yeah. So for me, it's all about water.
Yeah, beautiful.
So as long as there's water, I'm good. I can't go to a beach and not swim.
Yeah.
So where beach I can swim at. I'm not a hiker, I'm a floater. I'd rather float in the creek with the sunshine dappling through and all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Go for a hike because that sounds sweaty and annoying.
Yeah. I love it. And then finally, Instagram or LinkedIn?
I would say I'm definitely a natural inclination towards Instagram because it really has linked towards the side of business. So I kind of have two sides to my design coin in that I love branding, I love logos, I love creating that space, but I'm actually also a magazine designer.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like this weird little niche place, and all of my people are definitely on LinkedIn for that.
Yeah.
So I'm on different platforms for very specific reasons.
Yeah. And I think, as a digital strategist, I think that's exactly what they're there for. One platform can't talk to all of your audiences, and having a diversified strategy that comes from a strategic place is the best approach.
And that was, I think, probably one of the hardest things I frequently say it to my clients, it comes back to that overwhelm factor.
Yeah.
I need this stuff for LinkedIn, I need this for Facebook and stuff. And I can just see they're shaking almost with that overwhelm. And the simplest question I always say, well, what is the one singular purpose? If you could nail one of those platforms, what would be the action you want people to take?
Yeah.
And so, yes, I'm on different platforms, but for me, my primary, I've got two purposes for Facebook: family who are overseas, and to be in the Facebook groups I want to be in with
totally. Yeah.
Networking and stuff like that. That's my sole purpose, to connect with people. Facebook's purpose is connection. Instagram's purpose is visual. It's it's a more up-to-date version of my website. Yeah. It's kind of more, again, it does come down to connection, but for me it's just, and LinkedIn is purely about making professional connections.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even what you consume on each is almost like you're in your division of your personalities as well. What you consume on LinkedIn, you're consuming there often with a very strategic purpose, where on Instagram you're mixing pleasure and business and, you know, chatting to people that you just enjoy without sort of thinking, where could this go or what's behind it? So yeah, I think what you push out and how you consume it inwards is quite different as well.
Yeah, and it's having that level of awareness about it. So that all of the strategy in the world does not work on my ADHD brain on the best of days. So just even having a singular purpose on Instagram of, I would like my audience to book a chat with me.
Yeah. And what am I going to do?
Purpose.
Yeah, what am I going to do to you know, enable that, push that forward? Yeah.
And I would say it's very similar on LinkedIn. For me, it's about having a chat like this. You know, I want to have that face-to-face connection because I miss it. I live in Cairns and I work in my office in my slippers an awful lot. So it's a great way to force me to actually get out of my hermit mode and do what I do best, which is connect people and have and offer the value that I can.
Yeah.
Whether they're paying for it or not, for me, that's where my little zone of genius sits. And so I have a conscious sort of thought pattern around, if I'm going to go check out LinkedIn today, why?
Yeah. And I think that's great. I think it's a really good point as well, setting sort of a goal for each channel of how you're going to engage and what your purpose is. I think that's great as well, and keeping it simple.
Yeah. As soon as it gets complicated, my brain just goes, no.
Too much. No, thank you. Awesome. Well, look, let's dive into the juicy stuff. I would love to hear from you on, I guess, you know, something that I see that, you know, why do businesses, especially small business, why do they resist going all in on branding?
Branding's definition has changed over time and it's changed with the times.
Yeah.
And consequently, like with many industries, we pick up cliches, we pick up stereotypes around those industries, and we hear other people's stories and things like that. You know, we hear the horror stories of someone creating a logo and not being able to trademark it on Canva. Yeah. We hear of people going on to Fiverr and all of these these sites that, you know, they're not able to trademark anything or copyright anything. You hear of lawsuits, you hear of, and there's that space. And then there's the other end of the spectrum where it's, you know, super expensive, takes forever, very elitist and all of those sorts of things. And it can kind of sit at either end of the spectrum. And so people are kind of sitting and hearing these horror stories, especially when you're connecting in business groups and you're connecting with people that you're being told constantly you need a brand.
Yeah.
You are hearing these stories all the time. Right? Yeah. And I would say that the biggest reason that people resist going all on their brand is a lack of education and knowledge about what it can actually do for them. Like, brand is freaking fun. It should be exciting. It should be color and fireworks and it should light you up and it should have this level of like, oh, I can't wait to get this out into the world.
Yeah, so true.
And I feel like the big sort of either extremes have kind of dulled some of that. And it definitely seeds from fear. You know, there's probably fear around money. There's fear around, is it going to be right? There's fear around, I don't actually know what I want. So how could anyone else know what I want? So there's a lot of those fear-based things. And I'll be really honest, there's some people that actually have other pieces of work that they need to do before coming to me. And I think that again feeds into yet another stereotype that people are like, I could do you a logo for like $200. Yeah. And people are like, yes, answer, done. But they haven't potentially even worked out what their niche is or their product or what makes them unique. They're just getting another keep up with the Joneses, look the same as everyone else logo that they feel like they should have, and they'll sit there questioning, why isn't this working?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there is a lot of maybe confusion or resistance, but that like a logo isn't a brand, you know, and brand is something bigger. Brand is, you know, tangible and intangible. It's not just the physical JPEG that you can, you know, pop in your social media profile. And I think that's also why it gets devalued so much. That's why you see those posts. It's like, I'm looking for a cheap logo. It's like, oh, well, that's not a great way to start your business.
And you know what? I've actually said to my people, they know not to put me forward for those ones, because as much as I put myself forward as doable, there's a value mindset of going
course.
And I always offer people the chance to check me out. They still get a free chat, and I will do that education piece. And if they decide to go with me, great. But I will say no if I don't think you're quite there yet. And I think that it's sitting with it and figuring out what you want it to be able to do for you. And that's often not something that people have the knowledge about.
No.
So they do need to talk to a specialist, but they need to talk to a specialist that's not going to take them for a ride. They need to talk to someone who is, actually willing to talk to them.
Oh, exactly.
Them versus like, I'm a florist, give me a logo with a flower in it.
Which there's just so much of. And I guess, there's a person who knows how to produce that. And they're like, I can produce a logo for a florist for $300. And that's either not confident to say, well, actually, no, you need so much more than that, or doesn't have the experience, to build out a brand strategy around it.
Yeah.
So in your experience, what can a strong brand deliver for a business?
This is one of my favorite things about what I do. So I have services that I offer I call them foundational services for small and micro businesses. So it nails those branding sort of, stepping stones, I call them, because you often need to nail that first step to be able to move to the second step. And I have people that have worked with me for so long that I've had to create a second tier of packages for them. They've nailed their branding and it's worked so well for them that they're now thinking about those next steps. They're now thinking, I'm going to become a speaker. And I've been doing some of that, but I'm going to step more into the space. I have this amazing brand. I want it to carry across and build it out even more. And so I'm creating like speaker packages. I have people that are starting podcasts. So I'm doing podcast packages, courses. And that's what a strong brand can deliver from the start, is that you're not having to redo things. Everything you do is like another layer, like built on that foundation. It's not just hit and miss, and honestly, good branding should make your life easier.
Like
it should be easier. And that's what a strong brand will do, is that you won't be second guessing your fonts and your colors and this and that every single time. So it frees you up for growth and, business development and these other things that will then see you go, actually, what's that next layer that I can build in that foundation? And so a strong brand will give you growth possibilities. And it will, I try not to say logos are one and done. Like I don't, that mentality, I do believe that you need to consider brand at each stage of your business and how it can develop and help you grow. But the realization is, if you do nail those branding foundations, that everything else beyond that point becomes easier. You get to focus on your zone of genius and know that, say you are becoming a speaker, knowing that applying your branding or getting something else done, like a presentation or pull-up banners or something like that, to present your brand when you're going and presenting yourself to so many more people, it's so much easier and quicker and cheaper.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's the foundations, isn't it? And when you build those foundations right, you can then build your house in so many different directions and really, scale it in the ways that suit you, and always coming back to something really consistent.
Yeah, and branding is consistency. That's ultimately what it is. It's not mixing it up and changing it up all the time, but a brand should also be flexible enough to help you grow. So if it's too rigid or it's too, and so a lot of people will come to me and be like, oh, can I use this? And I was like, why do you need to have that? And if there's a logical reason, it's like, oh, well, my website, I really need an extra like pop color for my buttons on my website. Cool. Let's consider the considerations behind that and consider how it can work as your brand as a whole. cool, and off you go. That's great. It's just like that, like it's, and I feel like you're not given a lot of those things with the cheapy logos at the bottom of the scale. And at the far end of scale, it can be quite rigid if those flexibility considerations. And as small and micro businesses, our bookings don't freaking stop. And so we need to have that growth and flexibility consideration.
Yeah, that's so true. I guess I feel like you've touched on some of it, but I guess what are your top tips then for creating a brand that grows as a business grows? How, what should people be paying attention to?
Alignment, if something feels true. So a big part, so many people say, oh, I don't want to be a part of my business. But the realization is when you're a smaller or micro business, you are your business.
Yeah.
And a huge part of, and this is where that sort of confidence, that knowledge gap gets filled a little bit. How I work through. So often, especially when you're working at that low end of the spectrum on, your Fiverr and things like that, they're not going to get to know you. They're not going to need to know you. They're going to go, florist business, cool, business name, cool, put the two together. And then at the far end of the spectrum, like I am a firm advocate of brand strategy, and especially for some of these larger businesses and stuff like that. I feel like so often small and micro businesses are still figuring that out.
Yeah.
So what's not going to change?
Yeah.
Ultimately, you aren't. Your essence, who you are, is not going to change. It's going to grow and it's going to have adaptability and things like that. But ultimately, it needs to be a reflection of you. It needs to be so that, people say to me, they go onto my website and they go, and then they meet me and they go, you're exactly the same as what you were on your website. I was like, yeah.
Shouldn't I be?
Like there's no, what you're hearing my casuals, my energy, my positive, all of that stuff comes through on the website. And so it's the same with the logo. It's the same with your brand and where you're putting it out into the world.
Yeah.
If it's true to you and then people meet you or they want to work with you and they go, oh, I'm so, like that energy is what I was going for. And then I meet you and I have that energy. It's an easy sell.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And I think that there needs to be a little bit of inwards. I would say that that's like my absolute top tip. So when I go through my branding process, one of the things I notice is that, like I said, people like those beginning end of the spectrum, they don't get to know you. They don't get to figure out what it is and help you muddle through some of those gray areas where you're like, oh, crap, like who even am I and all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
It's about finding that cross-section by working with a specialist that can take that little step back.
Yeah.
Can give you some perspective, but also put visual form to your ideas.
Yeah.
And my favorite part is I go through a mood boarding process. Big packages, small packages, does not matter.
Yeah.
We go through a mood boarding, and this like nuts out everything from your simple like colors and style and fonts. But if I know that the next thing you're working on is your website, starting your social media presence, or you're an e-commerce, so you're putting up packaging and stuff, we look at the whole vibe. So we look at like packaging examples, we look at website examples, we look at social media sort of graphics and stuff like that, and we get that whole vibe. And by doing this sort of pick and mix style, we create something that's unique to you based on you. And I think that having something like that as business, we often feel we all have those lost moments. We all have those, we were talking about this before we jumped on, we all have those mountains that we're climbing and sometimes we can't see the other side yet. And it's like, holy crap. But knowing that you've got that foundational built, it's kind of almost like a reminder of who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's the foundations, isn't it? Yeah.
And I think that by having it have that essence and that connection to who you truly are, and sometimes it can be aspirational, that's fine. If you've got big dreams for 5 years' time. So I mentioned this earlier as well with you, that my brand, my logo, I went through everything that everyone else goes through with their brand. I had brand shame. I refused to show it. And do you know why it was? It was because I was creating what I thought I should do. I was looking at other designers and going, well, if that's what they do,
Yeah.
I will have success if I do that. And all it did was guarantee that there was two of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And their version of it was true to them. It wasn't true to me.
Yeah.
Second, I started to step into that by having a brand that was bright and colourful and a little bit too much, a little bit like me, people started to respond to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, through my posts, through my style of my graphics that I create, all of that stuff became very aligned to who I am. And so it's kind of like a really good filter as well.
Yeah.
If something feels off with your brand or what you're creating, there's a distinct chance it's not true to you, and it's not aligned with your brand values and those sorts of things. And so it's a really good meter, like a gauge.
Yeah.
You know? And that can apply to your content. It can apply to how you're showing up. It can apply to so many different parts and aspects of your brand.
Yeah.
Like, I could have come onto this amazing podcast with you today and been all proper and polite and very corporate. It's not me.
Yeah, I know. And then the misalignment of who you say you are and who you're showing up as, that then makes people question your credibility, lack trust in you, and ultimately then not want to engage with you because there's a mismatch. And I'm very much the same. You know, when there's a mismatch between someone's words and their actions, I find it very hard to navigate them, you know, because I think, oh, something's not lining up there. What you're saying and what you're doing are two different things. And I think that, you know, again, your authenticity, your credibility all comes into question if we start to feel that mismatch in alignment.
And you know what? It's actually like, and I would probably say that's my other tip, and the two tie quite closely together, is, and on many of my coaching programs and things like that, we produce a lot of content and a lot of like nitty-gritty stuff, and it's like a lot. And again, my little squirrel ADHD brain kind of has a tendency to go, glaze over, right? So for me, it needs to be drilled down into something really simple and really like actionable.
Yeah.
And so for me, that comes down to brand values. And my brand values are not only what my client needs me to be.
Yeah.
It's also what I actually am.
Yeah.
And so there's this nice, so for example, I'm not just honest. I have a tendency to be a little like really like the kind of honest that like kind of gives you that oof moment, but at the same time draws a really good line in the sand.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to say I'm for you if I don't think I'm for you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to recommend you to someone that isn't like I genuinely don't believe in and trust. I have built that as one of my core things. It's who I am, but it's also who my clients need me to be. And so again, it's another one of those filters that if I'm feeling the ick, chances are what I'm trying to do isn't aligned.
Yeah. And chances are you're not meant to be working together and all those sorts of things. And I think that really comes with experience as well, starting to filter out what's not for you and not take on things just because they're there, you know, not converting someone that you can't help, or not converting someone that you don't feel compelled to help.
And it's not even necessarily like just who I'm working with. It's what I'm putting out there. Like if I'm saying something because I feel like I have to say it.
Yeah.
And I'm saying it in a way that wouldn't be what I would actually say, but I feel like I should be saying it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then it's not true. It's not honest.
Yeah.
And there's a reason I feel the ick. If I'm producing a design that doesn't feel true to who I am for my business.
Yeah.
Because obviously I have to create for other people and sort of step into their shoes and sort of remove myself a little bit more. And the same thing works. Like one of my other values is boldly confident. I'm not just confident in like a reserved, like type way. I'm a little bit in your face with it. But my clients need me to be that. They need me to be the brave, strong person for them. Yeah. That builds up. And another one of my words is energetic. They don't need me to be fun. They don't need me to be playful. They need me to bring that energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And they all connect together. And that's what I mean by a true to you brand. Like, how many other people are going to have that combination?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that makes me unique, and therefore I'm putting it out into the world that I am unique, and that's my brand.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, you're going to attract those like-minded people, those people that appreciate those qualities and want to be around those qualities. Not going to attract the stuffy corporate person that's, ultimately not who you are best suited to serve, or not who you would enjoy serving, we should say.
Yeah. And I will say that I actually talked about this with someone the other week, that your red flags, and they build up over time, let's be honest. We can all say what we don't want to work with and stuff like that. And I feel like it's also the same with our brand, that so often we look at other people and compare ourselves and we take away negatives.
Yeah.
But instead it's going, okay, so they're doing that. That's not me. What am I then? And it starts to give you like this narrowing.
Yeah.
Rather than sort of like having this wide open world of like, oh my gosh, everyone's doing this and everyone looks the same, and oh my God, all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
By having some of those definitions, and again, it's building the cake, it's building the layers, it's building the narrowing of where you sit.
Yeah.
And how many amazing, delicious layers of your brand cake you can build.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great analogy.
Who doesn't love cake?
That's awesome. Look, thank you so much. I feel like you've shared so generously today. And I think it's been a different conversation around brand, which I think we have a lot of the same sorts of conversations when it comes to brands. I think it's so, great to open up people's eyes to different perspectives on brand and why it's so important. And I think really embracing that idea of a brand from today, to eternity. Rowena, where can people connect with you?
Well, the joyous thing. So clearly I love a pun, and if you jump on my website, you will see all of that. But my last name is Preddy. And so I am pretty creative. So pretty, which I always say that it's pretty, but with D's instead of T's.
Yeah.
The joys of having such a unique name is that you can find me under that everywhere. On my website, on the Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. That is who I am. So yeah, I'm on all of those platforms. I'm always up for a chat, be it around, we talked about kids and life and all sorts of things before we even jumped on this call, whether it's you need a rant or you're stuck and you just need someone to talk it out with, or honestly, 4:30 on a Friday, I'm up for a wine. So yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you so much again. And thanks for everyone else that's listened along today. And I look forward to being with you again soon. Hey, thanks for listening to another episode. If you don't want to miss one, make sure you subscribe to the show in your podcast app. And if you love it, be sure to share it with friends and colleagues who you think could benefit from increasing their digital marketing confidence. Want more? Head to marianneamies.com to find out how you can work with me directly, to reach out to have me speak at your event, or to grab yourself some free resources.